Amanda Martin's son, Stephen the RAT Cunningham, has come out of Facebook hiding, and he's actually commenting on people's mugshots. You might remember Rat, the individual who actually assaulted and battered me in barbecues in Chiefland, Florida. He took a sweet tea, he poured it all over me after hitting me in my back. Once he realized how huge I was, yeah, that's him looking straight up into my eyes. He found out what he got himself into was something he's probably not going to be able to get himself out of. As a matter of fact, tomorrow I have a meeting with the state attorney of Marion County. That's in Ocala, Florida, because they won't allow anything to be here in Levy County now because of his mom, Amanda Martin, who is under an independent investigation in the state attorney's offices here in Levy County. So he gets on one of the Levy County actual Facebook groups. I'll show you which group it is. I mean, it's just mind-blowing, the ignorance of these individuals, because it's a group all about mugshots. Okay? Levy County mugshots and more. And I know there are plenty of people out there following this group, waiting to see John Crook's mugshot, waiting to see LIEnette's mugshot, waiting to see RAT's mugshot, and others. And so there's a particular mugshot of this fella right here, Cody. Okay, now this is all public information, and RAT has the audacity to actually comment on it, and yet then he's called out on it. Cody got arrested for none other than battery. The exact same thing that RAT is under investigation for right now. And so a bunch of different people post a lot of different things. Now there's a Stephen Martin that posts this meme. Now this is not Stephen RAT Cunningham. Don't get confused with that last name of Martin. The rat's name is not Martin at the end. Remember, this woman has been in and out of relationships her entire life. It has actually destroyed people's families. And so the funny part is RAT Cunningham right here says, thought that was 2K, laughy face emoji. I know some other psychotic people who like emojis. And Jordan says, no man. And then Jimmy says, go visit him, get used to his cell. Your arrest and trial are coming in May, which is very true. This information is very, very true. Which Rhett says, whatever you say, buddy. Oh, there we go. Okay. Jimmy then goes on to say, guessing your mom is also getting arrested. This is all on a mugshot for battery. And then goes on to say, nice family. Which Jimmy's not lying. That's a pretty good assumption. It could be happening soon. Which then Rhett says, guessing is about all you're doing. Laughy face emoji. Ha, ha, ha. I'm wondering if he's going to be laughing after my meeting tomorrow with the state attorney after they put out the warrant for his arrest. We'll see what happens. Which then Jimmy says, oh, come on, Rat. I love that Jimmy calls him Rat. I love it. Jimmy calls him Rat. Says, you know it's coming. Fact, not a guess. You know what? I think me and Jimmy are the same. Debunking makes us feel so good. Now, there are those out there that say, Jeremy, come on, you're being petty. Listen, this guy, if you can even call him a guy, has endangered my life. And he's caused permanent damage as well. Now, whether I share that with you or not, what it is irrelevant. The reality is there are those that say, Jeremy, you call yourself a Christian? Absolutely. Do you know how many people God used who are Christians to actually cleanse this planet of sin? This meme that Deanna sent me, it really sums everything up in my mind. And I think it's particularly very powerful because it says some of you would have told David, the shepherd boy, to pray for Goliath and not cause a scene because he's a Christian. He follows God. If God tells me to slay some giants, that's exactly what I'm going to do. You have to keep in mind, I've been more than patient, more than graceful with the people of Otter Creek, and this is all combines into Otter Creek. The entire Amanda Martin thing ties into the Russ The Suss, the Meeks family thing. It's all wrapped in this tight little, would you say the related?
Circle?
this circle of corruption that is found in this town and county. Since it all does come straight back to Russ the Suss in Otter Creek, where Amanda Martin grew up in Otter Creek, let's take some more questions, because Chuck has a question particularly in regards to Otter Creek and the town hall. Do we have to wait until mid-May for the next meeting, or will a special meeting be called later this month? As of right now, Chuck, we have not heard of any special meetings, emergency meetings, so our gut instinct right now is that it will wait until May. And frankly, that's not really a bad thing, because as we've already seen, over 3 months with no real meeting, with nothing to really talk about, people not showing or walking out, again, Otter Creek doesn't need a town hall. Keep in mind, Russ the Suss pulled all these games last year as we shared Form 6, Don the Con's Form 6. And some have said, Jeremy, this is immoral for you to share this. No, it's actually very legal and very moral to actually share it, because that's the way the system is. If you don't like the laws, if you don't like the systems, the United States of America will tell you, go somewhere else. You either live here and you live under those laws and those rules that govern us, or you go somewhere else. All right, your third option is break them and go to jail. So there's nothing immoral about it. And others have said in Form 6 with Don the Con, oh my goodness, Jeremy, how in the world could you be so petty? He's only off by a few $100s. Okay, well, first of all, he's off by tens of thousands of dollars, because in Form 6, you must state value. Not what the county taxes you on, but the actual value of what your property, what your home, what your things would sell for. This is a $2,500 cell phone. Now, I can state that it is a $1,000 cell phone, or I could even go $999 so I don't have to claim it. But if I were to sell it or get it appraised, the value would still be $2,500. Now, with Don the Con, particularly in Form 6, you have to update it. There are those going, well, he used last year's numbers in his Form 6. It doesn't matter. If the values change, you are legally liable to update those values. Do you understand why Form 6 can get somebody in a predicament real quick? Because Don the Con, who states he can't even do emails and he can't do text messages, but yet he can film in Tubetown just fine, and he can get all that information to chart just fine, and now we see he got online to fill out Form 6. He's legally responsible to update it constantly, and if it's not updated, if the information is wrong, you are potentially getting a $20,000 fine, which brings us all the way back to Russ the Suss. What fines did he get when he shut down Town Hall for 2.5 months? Channel 20 shows up, and what's he say to them?
Ain't no clerk, ain't no show.
Poor old Golly Cat says, does Russ the Suss get paid? Well, I can guarantee you he did not get paid for this last meeting because he did not show. Remember, if you miss one meeting in your term, you get paid. You miss any more, 2, 3, 4. Whether it's consecutive or whether you miss one, then you show up, then you miss one, you don't get paid. Russ has missed multiple meetings, multiple in his term, which was 1 year. It's officially over now. There's nothing he can do to fight it. It's a done deal. He no longer is on the council for Otter Creek. Now, he could fill out Form 6 and run in next year's election. The Squared M wants to know, why don't you call the cops? Do a little wellness visit on Russ the Suss since he keeps pulling no-shows. Well, the reality is I think most people know where Russ the Suss is. Russ the Suss is usually downtown at the store, right next to the rug store, believe it or not. They're in very close proximity. And most people know Russ the Suss's path. He goes a back way towards Cedar Key on a road that many people don't travel on, jumps into Chiefland, or if he's not there, he's typically creeping and stalking around Otter Creek, moving slowly like the creep he is. So when we stated he was seen the next day going 10 miles an hour in a 40-mile-an-hour zone, Yeah, again, this is the thing that we love about YouTube and the thing we find frustrating about YouTube. Comments are phenomenal when they're great comments. When they're foolish comments, it gets aggravating. So there are many who are going, how dare Jeremy get upset that he's doing 10 miles an hour in a school zone? How dare somebody be so foolish to think that I own a school, that school is actually in session? It's a 100-year-old school. It hasn't had students in it for decades. The mileage is 40 miles per hour as people are trying to get around, but Russ the Suss is rubbernecking, trying to see what I'm doing at my school that I use for a warehouse where there are no students, but frankly, all of these individuals ought to come for some business lessons. Just so I'm completely clear, it's not a school zone. It's a 40 mile per hour zone. Dan Andrews says, it's been a long time. What's going on with Russ the Suss removing everything from Town Hall in the wagon? Which, remember, that was last year at this time. He stated it was all for Mary Mary. It was all her belongings. But he was witnessed by other Town Hall residents taking all those belongings not to Mary Mary's house, toward the Bronson dump. Now, did he go there? We don't know. Nobody saw after that. Did he hide it all in a storage unit? We don't know. Did he do a big loop and go back to his place? Is it hidden there? We don't know. We don't know where it is. But what I can share with you, he is under an ethics investigation out of Tallahassee in the state of Florida for 13 points. And as a matter of fact, there's some more points I'm adding to it as well. And one of those is the removal of town hall information. Now, you understand, Russ the Suss has also been recording for Chart and taking that out of Town Hall, which is Town Hall information. Since he is a council member, it is owned by Town Hall, and it may not be removed by Town Hall. He must give it to Town Hall for them to keep, the clerk. And Don the Con is doing the same exact thing. He did it last meeting, put his phone in his pocket. He pointed it directly at me because he wants to be a part of Tubetown. Now, they say they don't like a YouTuber in here. Actually, vast majority of them do love having us here. But Don the Con and Russ the Suss, and yet here they are being a part of Tubetown. Can you believe it? The people who are opposed to it are filming it and then giving it to other people such as Chart so she can do whatever she wants with it, which is really ridiculousness. That's what she does with it. She just Charts all over it. Fire 1000 Henderson says, oh, so you can record the meetings, but Don the Con can't? This is where ignorance shows up yet again, all right? Anybody can record a public meeting. I am a resident, so I can walk out with my recording and I can put it on YouTube or I can put it on any other social media platform. I own my device. I own what I recorded. It was a public meeting. I am not on the town council. Russ the Suss is.
Was.
Don the Con is. So therefore, they are under different laws and regulations and rules. If they are recording, it stays in Town Hall. I'm not on council. They are on council. Their recording stays by law. My recording is just mine by law. Paula Mulberry wants to know, what's happened with Mary Mary? Math is scary. Does anyone know? Well, of course we know. We know because Mary still lives here in Otter Creek. So after she battered me, and keep in mind, the legal definition of battery in the state of Florida is any unwanted touch. It doesn't mean right across the face. It means any unwanted, unwelcomed touch. That could be just a blink. That's unwanted. And that's what Mary did. She pushed me out of an office that I paid my bills in so many times before. And she wasn't just rude, and she wasn't just ignorant and displaying bigotry to just me and George. It was other individuals, quite a few individuals in Otter Creek. There are those that have thanked us for actually stepping up for their rights as well. So we dropped charges against Mary for that. She had a stroke. She's doing fine. She is home. She has been home. We see her often sitting on her porch. As a matter of fact, she was just seen at the post office. Was it you or Deanna that saw her?
It was me.
All right, so George just saw her at the post office, and what happened was...
We see her driving all the time. She was in the post office checking her mailbox. I happened to go in there because I was paying taxes, dropped off a couple letters, and she waited at the door until I pulled off before she walked out. She stood there looking at me, sitting in my vehicle, waited till I left before she came out of the door.
In the police report, Mary actually admits she pushed me out of the office. Her words, not mine. So keep in mind what battery is. And for us to just say, okay, we're not going to move forward. We agreed with the state attorney. State attorney called us and said, hey, we'd like to actually not move forward with this. We said, okay, fine with that. Not a problem. We agree. We won't push it any further. And so we're trying to let it be done and move forward. But there's so many things in Otter Creek, so much ignorance and bigotry and racism and horrific things that have been going on with people justifying it by saying, well, this is just the way it's always been done. Just because it's always been done that way does not make it right by any stretch of the imagination. Wrong will always be wrong. Right will always be right, regardless of who was doing it, how long they were doing it, how long they lived here, how long they will live here. The thing is to clean up the corruption. Christine Roman Noodles is probably asking the most important question of all. How in the, not world, but planet does Deanna's phone number increase every time you mention it? Because Deanna is the hottest commodity on YouTube. The gentleman's trying to come a calling for her affections, and it's going to cost some moolah. And then she's probably just going to change her number on him. Stephanizer says, since this was Russ the Suss' second no attendance at or non-attendance at the meeting, wouldn't this kick him off anyway of the town council? So you have to understand, Russ the Suss has actually tried to kick Vice Mayor Zim off the council before. And he tried to do it going based off of the charter that says if you miss 3 times, you're gone. The charter is illegal though. A town can't create a charter that trumps county law, state law, federal law, okay? This little town of 100 people can't go, well, this is what happens. What Russ the Suss quickly found out, and by the way, this is all covered in the 6,000 emails. He and Mary were trying to get Zim off of the board, trying to kick him off. And they found out that they could not kick him off. The own town council members could not kick a member off. The only person authorized to remove a member from the town council is the governor. And so at that point, Russ the Suss knew there was no way he could do anything. Regardless of what the charter says, if it goes against law, if it goes against what state law is in this case, it's null and void. All it is illegal, which is why we've heard Megan state in a previous meeting, this entire town charter is obsolete. It must be updated. And as a matter of fact, it was at that point that Don the Con said, well, so's the Bible. How dare he? Amethyst Winter asked a really good question. Don the Con showed up for his $100. Now, keep in mind, Don the Con on his Form 6 mentioned that he got $1,200 from Town of Otter Creek from being on the council, even though he did not actually get $1,200 because Russ the Suss closed Town Hall the previous year multiple months in a row. So that brings up yet another question. Did Russ the Suss make sure that Don the Con got paid even though Town Hall was closed? Because Amethyst Winter says, does the fact that Russ refused to seat the council members mean he effectively stole $300 from each of them so far? And does the town owe $200 to Russ? Okay, so I think this is a brilliant question. So did Russ the Suss steal this money from Carl, from Joe, from Laura Mott? And even though I'm not for Mott, I hope you get that. And I would love to actually be for Mott. I want Mott to actually debunk me and make me eat crow and apologize publicly to the planet on camera that she is for the good and the betterment of the residents, that she will stop the corruption. But we're not there yet. So did Russ the Suss actually steal the money? Well, here's what I can tell you what's happened in the past. There's typically an election in April, and then in May, those members are seated. So we are in April. The April election is not going to happen because the 4 people are running unopposed. Therefore, they get the seats automatically.
If Stewart would have stayed, then there would have been an election.
Stewart dropped out. And why'd he drop out? Because Russ the Suss told him to. And then Stewart came back and said, I want to run for the 2 one-year seats. Well, you can't be in the election and state, I want to run for the 2-year seat, then drop out from the election, and then later come back, well, I want to run for the 2-year seat. That's illegal.
The 1-year seat.
The 1-year seat. So Stewart's out altogether. The only election would have been for the two-year seats with Stewart, Laura Mott, and Don the Con. So we've got Not for Mott, we got Don the Con. And so is he stealing from them? I mean, the reality is these individuals could have been seated and they could have been paid. I think there's actually something there in that question that they could go after Russ the Suss. Because Russ the Suss and Don the Con, walking out on that meeting, they did not get seated, therefore they did not get compensated, even though they were there showing up for work. They were ready to be seated. They were ready for the reward of the work that they wanted to do. It's a really good question that I would have to talk to a lawyer about. LIEnette says, if they're communicating via text about town hall meetings and the such, which they are, then can't you just subpoena the records from their devices? So, Lori, the answer is yes. So, number one, we know they're using their personal cell phones to communicate about town business. That's an absolute. It's a guarantee. You're watching it happen, just like you've watched LIEnette and Russ the Suss texting back and forth in our Florida courts, right? That's illegal as well. And yet, Judge DeThomas hasn't done anything about it, has he? So, here's the interesting part. To get that information, guess what judge we have to go before? Judge DeThomas. Now, as you're aware, I already had a lawsuit against the town of Otter Creek for not supplying public records. Mary, under the tenure of Russ the Suss and his lack of leadership, with Attorney Warm, all 3 refused to give me any public information whatsoever. So what happens then, it goes into the courts. But I settled outside of the courts because Russ the Suss was gone, Mary was gone, Madam Mayor was in, and now Belinda is in, and they were running an office with true transparency, with boldness and bluntness, and saying, listen, we want you to know everything that has happened, that is happening, and will happen. So why continue to hurt a town because of what Russ and Mary and others did, where what we did was just settle and say, if you'll pay my lawyer fees, I will let this go. And I did get all the public information.
Some.
Except the text from Russ the Suss's phone and Mary's phone. When the lawyers were in communication, they continued to state from Russ the Suss to the town's lawyer, to my lawyer, to me, that the phone has been lost. Both Russ, isn't this interesting? One of them doesn't work about Russ's phone and Mary's phone. The phone has been lost.
I thought it was destroyed.
Destroyed. The word was destroyed. One phone was destroyed. The other phone was lost. Now, whose it was it Russ the Suss's? Was it Mary's that was destroyed? We don't know. Was it Russ the Suss's or Mary's that was lost? We don't know. That's what we were told. Now, to get the information and the text messages from all of their phones, including Laura Mott's, all we have to do is take them into court, and then Judge DeThomas would be the hearing judge, and he would make an executive order for us to get all that information. Well, under the understanding that this judge is a horrible judge, I just went, you know what? Let's try and get him unseated and get the right judge in there. And if they keep this up, then we'll move forward with that. Kelly Murphy says, so if Zim can't come back, does that mean that Russ the Suss and Don the Con do whatever they want? They try and take the town back? Does the town just dissolve? Can't there be any meetings anymore? Holy cow, Kelly, you asked a whole bunch of questions in a small little paragraph. All right, number one, Zim is back. So I'm going to try and tackle this the best that I can. Zim is back. He went to the ER. He had a pinched nerve, which if you've ever had a pinched nerve, it went down, it numbed in his entire left arm and hand.
So it mimics a stroke.
So it mimics heart attack, stroke, everything. So they found isolated pinched nerve, and they've got him on muscle relaxers and things along those lines from, I think that's what he told me. I'm trying to remember because it was a few days ago. Now, I haven't seen Zim since that or talked to him since that. But Zim is back, and I know there was another meeting, the Wakasasa. I know that's a fun word to say. It sounds like you're in the Muppets. Wakasasa! Wakasasa water meeting, which is about getting fresh water from Bronson to Otter Creek all the way to Cedar Key, and Zim was there. And believe it or not, it was a normal meeting. No Russ the Suss, no Don the Con, no foolishness. It was a normal meeting with things actually get done. So, first of all,
he did look tired.
Well, I'm sure he's absolutely exhausted. I mean, listen, at any age, at my age, if there's tingling in the arm, like I was concerned just, I think it was 2 weeks ago, this shoulder was out of socket. And at first I was like, oh no, is this stress? What's going on? And it took a week. I kept trying to pop it back in and it hurt like crazy, but it took a week and it finally went back in socket. But my first thought was, oh no, what's going on? And then when I felt it kept popping and popping. I was like, okay, I don't know how I did it, but I did it. Actually, I do know how I did it. I was laying on the couch and too long for hours, and George was laying on it, and I'm sure I try and pull and get away to go to the bathroom, and George doesn't let me up, and so George actually did it.
So
who do I sound like? LIEnette?
It was a blessing.
Who do I sound like? LIEnette? It wasn't me. It wasn't me. It was George. It was Jeremy and George. Okay. So it was me trying to pull away on the couch to get up to go to the bathroom, and her body weight pulled, as her body weight being on the arm, and then me pulled it out of socket. All right, so
pulled it back in.
Pulled it out of socket. It went in naturally a week later. So if Zim can't come back, will there never be a meeting? Well, I think there will always be a meeting unless the town unincorporates. Now, it could be to the fact that the meeting is there every third Tuesday, 7 o'clock every month. But if nobody shows, I mean, that's the meeting time. It's going to be there. If nobody shows, it'll be like the last meeting. Okay, it's canceled. We don't have enough people there. So the meeting will still be scheduled, but for 3 months, we haven't really had a meeting anyway, right? Is there really a need? Or do Don and Russ do whatever they want to take the town back? Okay, so Russ is gone. Russ has no way back in.
His term is over, but he can come back as a resident.
He can come back and actually sit with the residents. You think he'll come in and sit with me? Think he'll come in and film?
He may utilize the 3-minute comment per person and make a public comment.
Like he's smelling sharp?
He may make a public comment if he wanted to.
Ooh, wouldn't that be good? Who thinks he's actually going to come back? He's no longer on the council. Do you think he will actually be at monthly meetings? If
No.
he cares so much, about Otter Creek. We're about to find out how much he actually cares about Otter Creek. He is not on the council. He's gone for a year. Will he show up? Will his granddaughter be there? Charlene's daughter with her boyfriend. Will they show up?
They never did before.
The true supporters that Don was begging for 2 months ago. We're going to find out. Will Russ the Suss wife show up? Will Rosemary, Don the Con's wife, show up? No. All right. Can they take back over the town? No. Russ the Suss is gone for a year. Now, he may be gone for life once the ethics investigation finds its findings and then proceeds with the consequences of it. We don't know what that is yet, but he may be banned. Frankly, he may be jailed and he may be banned. I mean, I think what's going to happen is he's going to be banned and he's going to be jailed. But we're going to find that out once that investigation is over. And we don't know. This information has gone to the sheriff. This information has gone to the state, to the governor, it goes on and on. We don't know where they are in the investigation. They're not going to tell you. And we don't know what they're going to do with consequences. They're going to move forward when they're ready to move forward. They don't give you updates on it. Does the town just dissolve if there can't be a meeting anymore? Well, the town is always going to exist. Remember, the town is just land with residents living on that land. okay? Or residents that own land, but they don't live there. So they're taxpayers. The best way to say that is if they own land, they're paying taxes. Well, that is, except for Don the Con, as we looked at his Form 6, he's got that homestead exemption as well. The man's not paying any taxes to Otter Creek. Or if he is, it's extremely limited. Extremely. But the reality is, his home value is under what the homestead exemption is, which means really, if it worked this way, the state or the county owes him money, not him owing them money. But I digress. The only way to dissolve the town council is for the council members to bring it to the people, to the residents, to the taxpayers, and then the taxpayers vote on it at the next election, which would be great, right? Or maybe not. It all depends on where you are on this. For me, taxes going down and services by the county going up, it's a win-win for everybody. But maybe everybody doesn't think that way because Russ the Suss wants back on because control of water and people who can't pay water means he gets adult-friendly services in trade and exchange. I mean, really, there is no power in Otter Creek. Why would anybody want to be mayor in Otter Creek? I mean, really, think about that. So the only way to dissolve Otter Creek, you don't get rid of the town, you don't get rid of the name, you don't get rid of the taxpayer base. Everything is the same, except there's no town council anymore. Keep in mind, Russell has already tried this once in 2010. He went around to sign a petition with the residents of Otter Creek. And there are those that say, well, if you get a 50% write-in on that petition, then they can dissolve. No, that's not the way it works. So first of all, Russ the Suss, by the way, this is all in the 6,000 emails, all the information that I got with the public information request. So it's all there. Russ the Suss, number one, never had enough support or write-ins on his petition. And the only reason why he wanted to unincorporate is because he wasn't in charge anymore. So half of me thinks he's going to try and do the exact same thing. Except you have me saying that this is the smartest thing to do. You actually have a businessman saying that this makes sense for everybody. Well, you've got a failed businessman, Russ the Suss, who's declared bankruptcy multiple times, who's now going, if Jeremy's for it, I should be against it. Because the insanity in some people's minds are, oh, I'm not for Jeremy, I'm against Jeremy, and therefore anything Jeremy is for, I'm against. Okay, well, what if I'm for giving them money? What if I'm for giving Russ the Suss $100,000? You think Russ the Suss would be for it or against it? Biggin and John says, how long can these people keep this up? Is there any kind of time frame for them to take care of all of this stuff? So the reality is they can keep it up as long as the authorities allow them to keep it up. So I think he's talking about the corruption. I think he's talking about Don the Con, Russ the Suss, walking out of a meeting to stop a meeting to make sure it's stalemated. So you have to understand the legal process. A lot of the legal process is like a chess game. And in a chess game, there's strategies and there's movements. And so I could be in a chess game with George, and that chess game could be never ending. There is potential and possibility to where a chess game could never end. George could be in checkmate, she moves, no longer in checkmate, I move, she's in checkmate, she moves, no longer in checkmate, I move, she's in checkmate, she moves, no longer in checkmate. And it's called a stalemate, right? To where it never ever could end. She could make sure she never loses and make sure I never win. And that's really the game that Russ the Suss, Don the Con are trying to play. A strategy game. But here's the deal. They're horrible at it. They're absolutely horrible at strategy. Thinking is the hardest thing in the world to do. And that's why so few people actually do it. They rather watch what's on a screen and numb their minds than actually think about it and create stuff for a screen for somebody else to numb their mind. So you have to understand they're in this strategy game. They're being out-strategized by the system, honestly, look at some of the things that these individuals have constantly done. So I'm going to talk to you about how they're being out strategized. You've got LIEnette and John showing up at 2 meetings ago. 2 meetings ago, they show up at the meeting and they're there at 4:45 and they call Levy County Sheriff and they say, we're here, Jeremy and George aren't here. And so they're telling on themselves, okay? Sheriff Russ comes out. That's when Russ and Don walk out. That's their strategy. Walk out, shut the meeting down, therefore the people can't be seated. Then Russ The Suss lies to the deputies and says that LIEnette and John have business there, which makes no difference. You understand? This is where the strategy is backfiring. They're fools. Makes no difference whatsoever whether they have business there or not. They legally cannot be there. Now, LIEnette and CROOK, they are actually...
They can't be there because I'm there.
They're in Marion County system right now. So you don't know this yet because I haven't released it yet, that I just had a conversation with the state attorney in Marion County, in Ocala, in regards to LIEnette and CROOK. They're taking over everything now, seeking to press charges. The strategy has backfired. Now Russ The Suss, in his strategy, he's lied for them, and his strategy now puts him as an accomplice, and now this man is now legally liable for the lies that he told and potentially putting them in jail. So how is that strategizing at all? Peter Rimmer. No joke, that's his name. And I'm getting a visual here. Okay, all right, the 10-year-old child in me is coming out right now. I don't know if you picked that name on purpose or not, but Peter Rimmer says, with Meeks gone, wouldn't the new board members be able to be sworn in by the attorney without there being a meeting? And so, well, first of all, Peter, there has to be a meeting or swear in, right? There has to be a meeting of individuals coming together. Now, does it have to be the monthly meeting? No, it could be a meeting, but per sunshine laws, there has to be a declared meeting of when they're coming together. The lawyer will swear them in. And so Russ The Suss does not have to be there. Because Don was the only one at the last meeting, there was no Zim, there was no Joe either. And so some have asked, where was Joe? We don't know that answer yet. We still don't know. And so we can't answer the question because we don't know.
We've never met the guy.
I don't even know Joe. I know it's hard to believe. You're like, oh, wait, hold a second. You're in Otter Creek. There's 100 people. We don't know everyone. We just don't. And so the reality is what CROOK and LIEnette have done to us, stalking us here, what has happened in my life is I isolate myself even more. I'm very protective. For example, there was a fan staying over at the RV park. They said, hey, we want a cornhole, we want to donate a cornhole to you. They went to the RV park new owners and said, hey, can we go give this to Jeremy? Can you contact Jeremy? And I said, yeah, well, you can leave it at the gate, but you're not coming into the schoolhouse. I'm not letting random individuals that I don't know come to the schoolhouse. What does that mean? It means I've isolated myself. I have no firearms. My Second Amendment rights have been taken away. I don't know anybody from anybody. Regardless of whether they feel like they know me, my security and safety is in danger daily because of LIEnette and CROOK. And so I isolate myself even more, even though I put myself out there to go to a town hall meeting, right? So I don't know everyone. I don't know what's going on with Joe. I do know if they call a meeting and they come together, and that meeting must be advertised or it must be publicly declared that there's going to be a meeting, then Megan can get them all seated. Again, my guess is this will just naturally happen in the May meeting. Mason King says, Jeremy, did you ever get that $50 that Don the Con owes you for the drinking water?
I'll bet you $50 it'll pass any test you put it through.
Come on, man. You looked at his Form 6 already. You know he ain't got the $50. So how in the world am I going to get $50 that he bets me that it'll pass any test? And it's still filthy. It's still, remember, the system is still broken from what Russ The Suss did inappropriately and wrongly. The system is still being fixed. Last I talked to Vice Mayor Zim, I think they were pretty close to getting the system back on with the new filters and the whole deal. But we didn't have a meeting, and I'm sure that was going to be talked about in the meeting.
I'd love to do a tour of the water plant.
So it'd be fun to actually see it all being hooked back up again, see the difference. I would love to do a before and after. Like I'll try and contact Vice Mayor Zim and say, before this goes back up, can I please get a 5-gallon bucket of before And then can I get a 5-gallon bucket of after with the filter system? Because to my knowledge, it's still not hooked back up yet because of all the damage that Russell's stuff did to it. And so,
Wasn't it the wrong pipe size?
yeah, pipe size, everything. I mean, the man is obsessed with my 2-inch pipe. We all know that. But Don's never given me $50, nor have I gone back and said, hey, you owe me $50. I mean, come on. What's the reality Don even remembers that he made that bet for $50? Ancient One says if there are only currently 3 council members and 2 of them are there, isn't that a quorum? So Ancient One, yes, it is a quorum. It's a majority. It's a majority of 3. But I do think there's an aspect of it's probably frowned upon to move forward with just 2 when there's supposed to be 5, especially when you have people waiting to be seated. And so
I thought the quorum was 3 or more.
I don't remember exactly. It could be 3 or more. I don't listen, I have all the bylaws and everything, and I have everything. But to remember volumes, I mean, we're talking hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pages. I am able to retain a lot of information. God's blessed me that way. The older I get, less I can retain. But I don't remember that 100% completely. What I would defer to is what does the lawyer that represents the town, that tries to make sure, whose job is to make sure they are not legally liable, not doing anything illegal, what does she have to say? And if she's not comfortable moving forward, I mean, that's what you're paying her big money for that. If she's not comfortable moving forward, I mean, I would do the same thing my lawyers tell me to do. Before I do something, before I post something, I ask, is this okay? Will you approve this? Is this all right? Should I do this? It's very, very, very rare for me to do something against what my lawyers tell me to do. Now, that being said, I have lawyers in Ohio and I have lawyers in Florida, and so they don't even always agree. And so then I have to choose and say, okay, well, based on what's going on in Ohio, based on what's going on in Florida, I'm going to choose this person, what their advice and counsel is to me. TV 12 says, so do they pay the attorney a flat fee? Or is the attorney actually getting an hourly rate, wasting money every time she comes for a non-meeting? Okay, so good question. If you recall, and this is all in the Otter Creek playlist, there were multiple attorneys that were set forth to the board. And the other attorneys were cheaper. But Megan is the one that represented them in the lawsuit with me. Remember, I'm the one that brought lawsuit. They were the ones that were guilty of not providing public records. And they're still guilty of it, although they made it right. I got to clarify this. Madam Mayor Therese did absolutely nothing wrong. Vice Mayor Zim did absolutely nothing wrong. Town Clerk Belinda did absolutely nothing wrong. As a matter of fact, they are the ones that corrected everything Russ the Suss and Mary and Attorney Worm did illegally and wrong. They corrected it, and I thank them for that. And I truly appreciate them for that. So Megan was the actual lawyer because Attorney Worm would not represent them in court. He went, I'm not a litigating lawyer, which means he would not go before them in court. He won't step foot in court. Frankly, why would he? He'd probably end up in jail. He's so corrupt. So Megan is now getting paid a base amount. Okay, it's a flat fee for all the work she does during the month. Regardless of whether there's a meeting or not, she must be paid. And here's the most ironic part of it. Russ and Don wanted her over the other lawyers. Even though she was more expensive, they wanted her and only her. And Madam Mayor Therese said, okay. And now they want nothing to do with her. Mick says, it's an end of an era. Russ the Suss is out. And then goes on to say, this is going to kind of be strange. Where's all the blocking, all the public stupidity going to come from? Mick, you forgot. Don the Con is still there for 2 more years. And on top of that, now we got Not for Mott is back in.